Good evening and welcome to Transistance, your weekly news and commentary show dealing with issues that are important and possibly impactful for the transgender and the transgender adjacent community. We want to invite everyone to be welcome into the chat, either on Twitch or on TikTok. And as we move along, you're welcome to contribute to the conversation by making comments, but we do ask that you will keep those comments respectful, as we do not want to cause any potential problems among the chat or disrupt the flow of the show. But we do invite you to come conversation there in the chats. My name is Genevieve Bergman, and I'm one of your hosts.
And I am Emily Kleckner, and I am the co-host for tonight.
One of the hosts too, or co-host, or another host, or...
I should have come up with something for today. Marla is unfortunately out sick today, so I'm filling in. But I was one of the founding hosts of the show, so I don't know. I'm here though, and I'm so glad to see y'all here in chat. Thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump in with our first article. Florida's health department makes chilling move to block social transition and healthcare for trans kids. I saw this one. Jeannie, what's going on here?
Okay, this is a headline story because this is a major shift in the attack on transgender youth in those states that have been creating anti-transgender legislation and moving it through the process to become law. This is a new one because Florida's health department, the regulatory department that deals with all medical issues that are viable within the state, has issued a document that goes out to the medical care providers within the state of Florida that says anyone under 18 should not be prescribed puberty blockers or hormone therapy. Very much what we are used to. It also says that according to the Department of Health in Florida, anyone under 18 should not be counseled to socially transition, including changing names, pronouns, or dress. This should not be a treatment option for children or adolescents. So what we're looking at is Florida is taking a step out, much like Texas did. This is not legislative. This is coming through it's coming through one of the offices of the state. But the Florida Health Department is basically saying, hey, look, we do not care what the American Medical Association says. We do not care what the American Psychiatric Association says. We do not care what the American Academy of Pediatrics says. Providers in Florida should not give youth under 18 advice or counsel to socially transition. They've already taken gender-affirming medical care away, and now they're wanting to take social transition away from them as well.
Yeah, they're the life-saving social transitioning care, transition care, because we tend to think when they're talking about transition care for youth, and this is the main headline that they push, that it's gender surgeries under a certain age, under the age of 18, those sorts of things, gender confirmation surgery and stuff like this. And then they start to kind of push back on puberty blockers because they feel like that's dangerous for some reason. But the thing that often gets lost in that is that what's part of gender affirming care is the mental health service, which is so important to folks who are coming out and coming to grips with the fact that they're trans.
Right.
Now they take it a step further and say that you shouldn't, as a parent or as a medical professional, help a child transition socially, wearing the correct clothes, using name and pronouns, all of that stuff. So just basically erasure of being trans for youth entirely.
Yeah.
And we'll get into later how the true motive of the right to completely erase transgender ugh, I wish there was a better thing to say than transgenderism because I don't like the ism, but
Transgender erasure.
just complete erasure of trans identities from the country is what they are aiming for, and what they're pushing, and they're actually taking the steps. They're coming out from behind the shadows and out from behind the rhetoric and actually pushing towards doing that, and it's very scary.
Yeah. Now, again, we have statements coming out from those organizations that are trying to support LGBT plus youth and people, saying these are non-binding statements. But as we saw in Texas, non-binding, non legal binding statements coming from the official office does not stop those who have a bend toward removing transgender affirming care in any way. So even though it is non-binding, it is, again, this is Florida, where they have already done some horrible things, including the Don't Say Gay bill. But and we're also going to be talking about the new one that they've released, that pretty much puts a nail in the coffin of talking about anything that is possibly liberal in their mindset. And we're going to be looking at how Desantis is trying to keep anybody who is queer from being able to live a public life.
Mhm.
There is a couple of things in this, though, that I don't want us to overlook, because first of all, while there is language within um, this statement that's come out, the statement says that children and adolescents should seek counseling from a licensed provider, without clarifying what that licensed provider includes. And anyone who may, and this is where things get really, really, really scary. Because if someone is, especially a counselor or a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they endorse social transition, it is very possible for the Florida Department of Health to try and remove that person's licensing, leaving only those who adhere to the policy being those clinical providers. And one step further, if those providers happen to endorse conversion therapy, that is also on the table. It is something that is being considered. It is something that needs to be looked at, because if those providers are licensed, but their license is for conversion therapy, then they're still legal under the law.
Yeah, but they can remove the license for the people that actually care for transgender folks, and that was something I wasn't considering. That's a scary thought there too.
It is. This is not just taking away from transgender youth. This is also it's opening a door to take away the licensure of providers for just trying to help transgender youth.
Hmm. Well, and it's funny. It's so interesting to see how they've gotten so much distance out of not using the law. These
Right.
statements, these opinions that prominent officials make end up having those real ramifications and really do affect people in a big way.
Right.
And then when you talk about this stuff where they start to affect licensing, these are ways where they're getting sort of around the main laws that everybody would be focused on, and attacking in a way that has no consequence for them. You
Right.
know, it's just that things that are well within their ability to do. They can put out statements all day. They can start to threaten and pressure organizations and providers of
Mhm.
care, and threaten, we're gonna put something, we're gonna remove your license, And I think it can be done in ways. My fear is that it can be done in ways that aren't as public and not as easy for the public to see or
Oh yeah,
pick up on.
absolutely. Because you will have okay, this is where things get really really political. And the idea behind the scenes is if we can pressure you to either move forward with their agenda or step back from the opposing agenda, either one of those are a win.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody steps forward and says, okay, I'm not going to support this, that's when they begin to apply pressure in very obvious ways. But for the most part, what they're going to do is they're going to work with those people who are on the fence, and they're going to try to get them to join in and say, hey, look, we're not going to criticize you if you use these methodologies. We want you to just focus away from this particular methodology, and if you choose to do that, then this is what you could possibly face, and they're not above using intimidation.
Hmm. Well, and then the other thing that you said that is another really chilling aspect to this, and we've seen it over the last at least 4 6 years, is that move towards eliminating any language that is of the quote unquote liberal agenda, anything that they see as being liberal. Well, the problem is that they see science as being liberal. They
Yes.
see medical professionals, medical expertise as being liberal.
Right.
Anything that contradicts their very narrow and view of the world and the way things work is seen as liberal. And like
Mhm.
I said, yeah, um, that that cuts out a lot of the expertise, a lot of the scientific knowledge, and the proven facts about a case, about any particular subject that they want to push back on.
So here's an interesting thing that happened on Saturday. When I went live on TikTok, I had someone who jumped in and into my comments and was making different kinds of comments that circled around science and masculinity and femininity. And so I invited them to come into the live and actually interact with me in a dialogue.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, at one point we actually got to the place where he was citing numbers, statistics on how many intersex people there are within the world community.
Mhm.
And he pulls out this number that is 0.0018. I'm like, okay, let me see. And I pull this article up, and it's from 2002. And I said, okay, let's look at what the article actually says. And that number was arrived by removing Kleinfelter and Turner and adrenal hypatia. Can't remember that word right offhand. But anyway, some of those classifications that are now included in intersex conditions and are
Mhm.
recognized and are validated. And so he's saying what we need to do is we need to go back to 2002's numbers. And I'm like, that's not how science works. We move forward. And now these numbers are being aggregated together because it is seen as a shared type of condition. But
Mhm.
again, what they want to do is they want to go back as far as they can, grab a number that gives them authority, or grab a statement that gives them authority, which is why we're still getting Ray Blanchard language of autogynephilia, and we're getting all of these words thrown at us. You know, the only reason why people know autogynephilia is probably because Silence of the Lambs. I don't know for sure if it was mentioned in that movie, but I have a lot of people who don't have a sparking clue on therapy, psychotherapy, psychology, any of that stuff, and yet they sure do know a great big word, autogynephilia. And I know educated people who I have to tell them what that word means.
And the hilarious thing about that, and the thing that I rail on the most on this show, I think, is pick the direction that you want to attack trans people from and stop saying all of the things. if trans people, the main narrative that I kind of cling to, that I feel like is sort of the most pervasive, is that trans people are men in drag trying to skis on women, trying to assault women. If you have autogynephilia, that's the focus is you're turned on by the idea of you having a vagina. So why? So like your whole focus is getting a vagina, and then that's it. That's the whole thing of like. So these other arguments then don't make any sense, and it still goes back to, well, then why the f ban trans kids from playing sports? Like,
Right.
if, like I get so frustrated that we have to deflect 1,000 different arguments from the same people. They're all, they're all using all these different ones. And it's like, well, which one are you using as your argument?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. And look, I don't want to brag, but typically any of these arguments that come up, I'm able to respond to. But I also know that not everybody is able to respond to them. So some people may know the media stuff because they watched Disclosure. Some people may know the religious stuff because they happen to have come through the church. Some people may know the science stuff. Some people may know the psychology stuff. I happen to know a lot of that all together. And usually when I encounter trolls, when I encounter transphobes, when I encounter anti-trans arguments, when I start meeting them beat for beat in every one of their areas of focus and then shift to another one, they get lost because normally they have only learned one topic individually. There are very few who get out there and they can be authorities on everything. I just happen to know a little bit about a lot of stuff, and so I can have those conversations. But that's what I've seen. Most transphobes, most anti-trans debaters, they want to focus in on one issue because that's the one thing they've studied the most. Like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is basically a moron, and his big thing is define a woman for me.
Mm-hmm. Always turning it back on you, like you provide me the evidence. That's
Right.
always his thing. He always turns it of like, well, where are you getting that from? What are your facts?
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I feel like we spent a good bit of time on that one because it just covers so much.
15 minutes. Emily, we got plenty of time.
Yay! So next we're going to move over to Missouri. Missouri lawmakers consider extending proposed ban on gender-affirming care to adults. So again, we're talking about the same thing where the original intent was focused on, what they say, protecting kids, right? But then now they're starting to show their true intention and extending the age range up to adults. Jamie, fill us in on the story.
Okay, so this is perhaps one of the most obvious steps toward removing gender affirming care from adult transgender people, because the argument that they are basing on this is allowing them to go past both of what we recognize within the United States as legal adult age. So we know in the US, typically, there is one legal adult age for such things like joining the military, voting, and, gaining those rights of citizenship. Then there's another legal adult age that recognizes more of a safety barrier at 21. Now, what Missouri is proposing in House Bill 2649 is that 25 needs to be the lowest age number for anyone to receive gender affirming treatments like puberty blockers and hormone therapies.
I don't know about you, but my puberty at 25 was brutal. Jesus.
I mean,
Still has any puberty at 25. It was long since done by then.
well, hang on. Now look, I worked in college campus ministry with college students, and I know that the average ability of a male on a college campus's maturity, comprehension, and social ability is that of a 14-year-old.
It's low. It's low. Yes.
It's low. So there is an argument to say that there is a second puberty somewhere between 18 and 23. And it's usually on college campuses. But what this bill has actually quoted the science. And I use that in a very catch-22 sort of statement. About 10 years ago, neuroscientists began to notice that the prefrontal cortex of people does not fully and completely mature until the latter half of the 20s. So what I'm talking about here is that the prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that impacts things such as critical thinking, higher functioning, so that you're able to actually make informed decisions and critical decisions. Laura Haynes, a psychologist, testified before the Missouri House that she believes that young adults under the age of 25 are unable to fully comprehend the dramatic and drastic and irreparable changes their bodies will go through. She also said she supports conversion therapy. Now, if we remove the 18 and the 21 adult legal choice ages, and we move it to 25 based upon medical research that talks about the prefrontal cortex, it is very possible that we could see later on that moving to 30 or 35, because the idea of brain development is still being studied. We do not know the full impact of maturity, of hormones, of age on the brain. And so we are just now studying that more in depth. This is a first salvo against adult transgender affirming care. If this is replicated across the country based upon a very shaky understanding of science, then we are potentially looking at the removal of transgender care for adults.
Well, and it's even broader than that, right? And we've kind of seen that with the, and you've made those parallels between transgender rights and the reproductive rights of females.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is they're trying to control what people do. That's the baseline here. They want to control what the citizens of this country do. And this will go a long way to that. If you can prove that, or if you can buy this thing of people under 25 shouldn't make decisions for themselves, people under 25 shouldn't make any decisions for themselves, and the government should be able to make those decisions for them. So you shouldn't be able to get any healthcare stuff that the government doesn't say you should get.
Exactly. And to go one step beyond that, you're also removing anyone under 25 from voting. You're removing anyone under 25 from serving in the military. You are removing so many aspects of what dramatic and drastic critical choices, life choices, will include. Mm-hmm. So if someone says, well, you can't make a life-changing, life-altering, life-committing decision until you're 25. So then all marriages need to be banned under the age of 25. Military service needs to be banned under the age of 25. Um, pregnancies need to be closely monitored for under 25.
Yeah. No sex under 25. The one that we won't hear from them is you shouldn't be able to own a gun or handle a gun under 25.
Emily, why would you go talking about people's religion like that? But yeah, this
Should you not be allowed to choose a religion under 25 then as well?
You shouldn't at least be. I mean, I believe you shouldn't be able to be baptized until you're 25. Because here's the thing. Okay, let me take this out on a tangent. Sorry, it's a rabbit. I know. Brain. There you go. Many of these religious, Christian, conservative, evangelical, fundamentalist groups will argue against mainline denominations for the practice of infant baptism based upon the argument that the person must make that choice for themselves. If we keep seeing religious exemption laws being pushed, all they get to do is they get to go on with their thing. But if we can stop the religious exemption laws, then basically it is a cultural argument saying you can't have it both ways. You can't baptize anybody until they're 25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can't make a life-altering choice of which religion they're going to indoctrinate themselves into until then.
So, I mean, quite literally, using their words against them.
Mm-hmm.
They love to brag about when they gave their life to Jesus. And now they're going to have to say, you can't give your life to Jesus until you're 25. Oh my God, I know what I'm making a TikTok on tomorrow.
Good. All right, so we weren't able to get images working for this show again. We've still got another step to do to get that working. The next bit that we're talking about is the anti-LGBTQ bills in 2020, and the main part of this is the map. Are you confident in being able to talk about this, Jeannie, without showing the map on screen?
You're kidding, right? Me confident about anything? Me confident about using my mouth to talk about stuff? Emily, come on, baby.
Please take it away, Jeannie.
So, actually, the major issue in this bill is not actually the map. It's the numbers. So far in this year, as of April 25th, there have been more than 300 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in states across the country. Over 300. That means that we have doubled what we saw in the totality of 2021, just in the first 4 months. And we are looking at things that are absolutely horrific when it comes to the safety and the well-being of LGBTQ plus people in the United States. When we talk about this, we all can name the different states. But as of right now, the states that have introduced anti-LGBTQ bills in this year numbers 28. And as of this week, 8 of those have signed those bills into law. So we're talking about the anti-trans sports bills. We're talking about the Don't Say Gay bills. We're talking about the gender-affirming care bills. We're talking about all of them together. 28 states have introduced them. 8 of them have been passed into law.
And the
There
scary
are,
thing about that, looking at this map, and this is why the map is crucial. I'm sorry, y'all. Texas and Arkansas are not part of that
no, they
because
aren't.
they haven't actually passed any bills yet,
Yep.
or putting it into legislation. But as Texas has proved, we talked about earlier, they've been able to do it outside of passing legislation.
Yes. And that's how they're doing this. They are getting around this by using political power and those constitution, state constitution sidesteps that they can do. Governors making statements, offices making statements, people declaring, that this is going to be the policy from here on out. And so we are definitely, looking at these issues and saying, okay, how do we stop all of this? And that's why it's helpful for us to know what and where these things are happening. So um, when we talk about all of these different states, I know it's overwhelming, but it means that there is a lot of work in the entirety of the U.S. So, for example, Kansas, the Kansas governor vetoed the anti-trans sports bill and the parents' rights measure. And this is twice in a row that Governor Laura Kelly in Kansas vetoed the sports bill. And the parental rights bill failed to attract a veto proof majority. So it looks like Kansas is going to be able to bypass some of these bills getting through. And what the Kansas bill would have done, the parental rights bill, is that it would have given school boards the authority to adopt policies that allowed parents to review curriculum, material, and processes so that things could be removed that they didn't want taught. So Kansas dodged a bullet on theirs. Arizona, on the other hand, is about to pass a parents' rights bill. And this is very much like some of the others. It says parents have the right to direct their child's education, upbringing, mental health care, and religious or moral training. Any school interaction that a parent interprets as usurping those rights would then be grounds for a lawsuit against that school system. So it's looking to basically give parents the right to sue the school if the school in some way violates their parental authority, their parental supervision of their child. So if a parent does not like what a child was taught that particular day, and I can see the crazy, crazy, crazy argument that this is now going to attack the math that is being taught, the math processes that are being taught today, because math is being taught from a totally different way, totally different perspective than how many of us grew up learning math. It's used to simplify. It's used to give them a broader understanding of how to apply math on a daily basis. But many parents were raised under the previous form of math. And so their kid comes home. They don't like the way the kid's being taught math. They go up, they say, hey, you're not supposed to teach my kid this kind of math. Teach them that kind of math. Teacher says, that's the math we teach. And boom, lawsuit. How many frivolous lawsuits are going to be generated just because a parent doesn't like what the teacher did?
Well, yeah, and there's no end to that. There's absolutely no end to it. This is baffling. And I know, this just pushes towards the thing that they want, where they don't have to have their kids in public school. They can put them in Christian school so that the only things they learn are Christian ideals.
Oh yeah.
And this pushes towards, well, this is going to destroy the public school system, and so the only schools that'll be able to stay and survive will be the ones that are I guess potentially, but they even still not, are the public school or the private schools that the parents are paying into,
Right.
where I don't know. I don't even know how to address this. It's I mean, how do you fight that? Saying that the parents should have the right to determine what their kids should learn. There, I'm not phrasing it as well as you put it before, but the phrasing that you used is sort of in defense, in unattackable. Like, well, yeah, it is the parents' right to
Yeah.
determine what the kids, what their children are exposed
Right.
to a great extent. And so, yeah, that's I don't know how you fight back against that, because just the literal words of it do make kind of common sense, and I think a lot of people are gonna be on that side of it,
Yeah.
without realizing how much it really destroys our ability to teach.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And I got a couple of people who are making comments over on TikTok, so I want to address that for just a minute. I appreciate that y'all are coming in here and telling me that it's not that easy and this is what parents get to do. But the problem is that the law is vague. The law does not clarify these type of issues. So it's not as common as you may think to come in here and jump on me and say I don't know what I'm doing, when actually I do understand how law works, and that when the law is not clarified, when there are not explicit details given to how or why something can or cannot be dealt with within an institution that is governed by the state, such as a school system, then it is very easy for people to bring any kind of lawsuit that they want. There is no protection from a lawsuit. It is the judge who gets to determine whether or not that lawsuit can be heard or should be thrown out. So while you may come in here and you may think you get the upper hand by talking about, well, this is parenting, or this is that, or this is, or the thing is not that hard or that easy, you need to take a step back. You need to actually read the fucking laws yourself and understand that people use the loopholes in order to get what they want.
Well, and the key here isn't the law, isn't people will think that the key is the outcome of the lawsuit, and that's not true.
Right.
The key is launching a lawsuit causes the defendant a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even to get to the judge, even to get to that first initial point where the judge would determine to throw out the case,
right,
is legally costly.
Yeah.
And it's just something that our schools do not need to deal with. The worst part about this, we were talking earlier about the Don't Say Gay bill, and how it kind of forces teachers to make a decision about what they'll teach as far as sex and gender and things like that. And so teachers were kind of pushing back on it in a way, using gender neutral pronouns, because she, him and her are he, she, him, her are gendered pronouns that suggest sex and things like that. And it's like, well, we shouldn't talk about that then, right? And so when you think about this thing in terms of the lawsuits, it's like, well, then we would just sue for anything that is Christian based or whatever, let's say, in the teaching. But the problem is that it hurts the schools themselves. It doesn't hurt any of these people that put these terrible laws into place. It doesn't push back on the actual problem. It makes the problem worse. So there's just no way to push to fight back on this, even though there technically is. Like, well, you're going to sue about that. We're just going to sue about the opposite, because the same is true. Like, I don't want my kids being taught anything about Christianity. I don't want a pledge of allegiance that says, one nation under God. But that would be the logical pushback on that. But it's the school that suffers, not any of the people that would actually need to feel the brunt of this for this to be improved.
Yeah, I agree. So then we go on to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is creating a bill that would basically force a school counselor to disclose and make available to parents any materials dealing with sex education, specifically those dealing with sexual orientation and gender identity. And the instructional material, including pamphlets, documents, textbooks, or discussions that might bring forward a conversation about sexual behavior or attitudes, would have to mandatorily be disclosed to any parent of a student participating in the activity.
Mhm.
And this is basically the outing of students. If a student decides to trust a teacher with what is happening to them, then they are going to be bound by state law to share that information with a parent.
Mhm. Well, and this brings up another really key point, and it ties back into that idea of the legal adult age being shifted by, that they're trying to shift it to 25, is that this forces the kids no longer have their own, they no longer have any sovereignty to make their own decisions.
Correct.
It's all going to be taken away from them, and it's all the parents their entire life up to 18, potentially up to 25, whatever they would want to make it.
Yeah.
And the thing about this that is so striking and is so hurtful to the trans community is, think about how many stories we've heard of trans folks. A lot of times, the people that are the least supportive of a trans person are their parents.
Yes, absolutely. And we look at the numbers, and I just did a thing on the numbers where it's staggering how many youth do not feel safe in their own home.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are ridiculous, and it's embarrassing to have a group that's coming out, and all these bills are backed by the idea of, we want to give parents the authority, the right to raise their children the way they want to do, which means threatening them, which means putting them in a hostile environment, which means giving them an unsafe environment in which to be nurtured and grown into.
It just goes back to their ideal of not allowing people to have their own rights and make their own decisions. They can affect the parents, and then the parents control the children.
Yeah.
And allowing children to make their own decisions is something that's abhorrent to them.
To a degree, yeah, absolutely. And it's been, it's a back and forth. As long as it supports their coffers,
Mhm.
get a kid to give their heart to Jesus at 5 years old. That's great. But don't give that kid any education on who they are as a human being, as a sexual being, until they're 25.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, that right there is going to, that's going to cause a lot of problems. Back to Florida, we have Governor Desantis signing the Stop Woke Act, which would basically crack down on any topics that are deemed to be controversial or problematic. The bill, which is short for the Stop the Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees, restricts how workplaces, schools, and colleges can teach about racism, homophobia, and other systemic biases. It bans anyone from discussing how people can be inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, or that people can be responsible or should feel guilty for historic injustices against people on the same grounds. Workers will now have the ability to file civil discrimination claims against an employer for discussing or running training sessions on Black history, LGBT plus issues, or other injustices.
Wow. Holy crap. So again, attacking anybody that supports the LGBT community and the Black community. That is crazy.
Right, yeah, and that's always been it. I mean, the crazy intersectionality that we've seen this year is that Black Lives Matter and trans live issues came in at the same time. And now we have critical race theory and gender theory, which, by the way, there is a positive side to gender theory and there is a negative side to gender theory. But the thing is that both of these rise up at the same time. And so now they are just focusing in on these issues and they're fighting them at every turn. But here's the thing. This moves from schools to workplaces. We are moving this out from how children are impacted into how adults are impacted. So in schools, the parents could raise issue about what their children were being taught, but now workers can sue if there are mandatory discussions or training sessions.
They want to dig their heads into the sand and leave them there their entire lives, so that you don't have to hear about anything that. Oh my God! Oh, didn't the term snowflake come from the Republicans against against Democrats? Like,
Don't say that. Don't say that word. Because they'll think we're talking about ourselves, and they'll say, "See, they're talking about themselves. They're snowflakes." So, yeah.
but the people that are afraid of information, afraid of truth, and afraid of reality, that would sort of be what I would think would be the definition of a snowflake. Somebody that is just too fragile to be able to hear anything about reality, anything that contradicts what they have been led to believe in any way. It's just wow.
Right?
Oh,
It's ridiculous and it's absurd, but um, it's what we have to deal with. There is so much cognitive dissonance that is happening within the conservative side of things that they are contradicting themselves consistently on every
they are
subject.
consistent. You're right. You're right.
So it's wild that it's getting to be so ludicrous, and yet the inmates are in charge of the asylum, and sadly they have the electric chair.
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous. This is not just a simple matter of, well, here's a few states who are trying to do something silly. No, this is so wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount of states that are actually protecting the citizens of the United States, the citizens of the country, American citizens, paying taxes, living their lives, doing all the right things that we're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
is the vast minority.
Oh yeah.
And the
Yeah.
states that claim that there shouldn't be big overarching government and all that, and the government they're trying to dictate every single thing that we have access to or the ability to hear and learn. And it's just, I mean, that's a level of hypocrisy that is award winning. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's core hypocrisy. You're basically saying, well, and here's the thing, okay? Texas is one of those states that wants the conservatives in Texas want parental rights. And yet they turn around and they instruct the Department of Children and Family Protective Services to investigate families and parents who are providing their children with gender affirming care because they don't like gender affirming care. It's not about parents' rights. It is about controlling people.
Yeah, it's never about what they say it's about. It's not about parents' rights. It's not about protecting kids. It's not about protecting women's sports. It's all a smokescreen. Again, the scary thing is they're getting out from behind the smoke screen and they're just coming out and doing and saying the things right up front, and they're still not facing consequences.
And they won't. They will continue to not face consequences. This is a thing where we are going to see these continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. All right. Let's do a little bit of history and sociology here and throw them together.
Okay.
When you create enough noise about something that it becomes sort of a source of agitation. Why do I have to hear this one more time? Why do I have to listen to this one more time? So what will happen is that eventually this will be pushed and pushed and pushed until the public is tired of listening to it. And then they won't care anymore. This is how propaganda works.
Mm-hmm. And how they steal our voice entirely.
Yeah.
They make it so that it doesn't matter, because people will be so sick of hearing about the issues to begin with that that our pushback on this won't even matter.
Right.
That's crazy.
One of the people that I was responding to over here on TikTok, after I said what I had to say, came back and said, "Oh, so disagreeing with somebody leads you to be defensive about something." And I'm like, I'm not going to engage with you. I'm not defensive, except for the fact that this is my community that is being targeted. And if you don't understand your own tactics, that's not my fault. This is exactly how lawsuits, this is exactly how loopholes are taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I just don't get how they don't understand. You've come to our space to attack us, and then we push back on it, and then you jump on us for like, oh, you're whatever they're saying, you're getting defensive, all that unnecessarily, and all this. And it's like, no, you purposely went out of your way to find this discussion, to then enter into it, to say that who I am as a person is not valid. And you're saying that I shouldn't I shouldn't act in a defensive way about that. I'm under attack. Like that's what you do when you're under attack. And you're not in a public forum that is a thing open for debate. This isn't a town hall. This is our space where we're talking about our issues. And
right.
So you can come in and you can, debate counterpoints and stuff like that, but you can't attack us and get away with it, thinking that, we're the ones who are in the wrong for the way we react to that attack.
Yeah. My friend Massey just posted over here on TikTok, reactive abuse.
Well, and the thing is I need a study. I need to find out what it is. Like, how are these people so damaged that they need to come after trans folks? It's just bullying. You bully and you stomp on the people below you, and it's just like, who hurt you this bad where you have to go so far out of your way to demonize and attack a group that has never done anything to anyone?
So I have a new phrase that encapsulates why, or the basis of why they do that. And It's called the Audacity of Privilege. It is the idea that they have every right, they have every ability, and that they have every sense of moral superiority to do that, because the marginalized group that they are attacking does not have the same capital in those arenas. We do not have the privilege of legitimacy within the culture. We do not have the privilege of protection within the culture. And you were just saying just a minute ago, and I know I use this as I've talked about this because we talked about it when it happened, But this is a great example. What happened to me is virtual. What happened to me was, you know, this public forum. We're gathered here to talk about trans issues and trans adjacent issues, and it's mostly either trans people or allies who are supporting us and wanting to learn more. Somebody who is an anti-trans person comes into this space and then seeks to demean us.
Mhm.
Now, let's translate that into a real world brick and mortar flesh and blood situation. And we have situations such as the transgender woman in Kansas City who was in her apartment. There was a domestic issue with her boyfriend who broke into her house, forced his way into her house, started to assault her, and she defended herself, and she was arrested by the police. If a transgender person is perceived as armed, even if they have a legal license to carry a weapon, they are the threat, even if they are acting in self defense. It is the exact same situation. It's just flesh and blood. If we're trying to protect ourselves, there is no guarantee that we will be allowed to call upon the rights, such as stand your ground or legal licensed concealed carry. There is no guarantee of that because we are seen as intruding upon their ground, but they can intrude upon ours at any point. The audacity of privilege gives them that place to be able to say, this is my right. I get to say to you whatever the hell I want. I get to treat you however I want because I have the privilege to do it.
Yeah.
It's sad and it's fucking messed up, but it is the way it is. Now, real quickly, this is one thing. This is something I want to go through real quick if I can. So Stacker.com did an analysis of all of the different legislations that is out there in the U.S. And what they did was they rated all of these states plus Washington, D.C. as which states are the most restrictive or which states offer the most protection for trans youth. So at the bottom of the list, Massey, you're going to love this: Tennessee, Arkansas, South Dakota, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina. All of those had negative overall tallies, which meant that there are active legislative measures to make life worse for trans youth. Next is Texas, Missouri, Wyoming, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, Nebraska, West Virginia, Florida, North Carolina, and Indiana. Right in the middle, we have Kansas, Ohio, Kentucky, North Dakota, Utah, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Alaska, Wisconsin, Michigan, Delaware, and Virginia. So if you want to know the best place to be, if you want to have the best chance with trans youth, number one is Colorado. Number two is California.
Woo.
Number three is New York. Number four is Nevada. And number five is Connecticut. Top five are the best places for transgender youth. So if you're in one of those states that were in the bottom half, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's just sad to see how many there are against us. It's just those numbers are rough.
Yes.
All right. Oh. Okay, we'll keep working. GOP lawmaker sends text with fake gender reassignment surgery appointment to raise cash. So someone's using a fake gender reassignment surgery thing to try and get themselves a little coin on the side. What's going on here, Jeannie?
Okay, so this is the new segment that I call campaign bullshit. And basically people who are campaigning, who are candidates, who are out there trying to get elected for the midterm elections, especially Republicans, they are using the transgender youth and adult platform to the hilt. And they are using as many words and as many fear-mongering tactics as they possibly can to promote how they can save their states from the menace that is the transgender agenda. So this individual, Michigan Republican Tom Barrett, is a senator, and he sent out a text message to raise funds for his campaign that claimed that their children had been signed up for gender reassignment surgery.
What? Oh my God! Wow! I missed what the point of that headline meant. That is different, and that is absolute insanity. That goes to the level of something we'll talk about later. I think one of our like 3 or 4 last articles, just these crazy lies that are being used to drum up more fear.
Right. Yeah. The article gives a snapshot of the text. The text supposedly went out to Senator Barrett. It says at the top of the text, appointment status confirmed. Appointment details with a confirmation number. Appointment for your child. Appointment type, gender reassignment surgery. Appointment date, tomorrow at 9 a.m. All right, now, we here in the Transverse, we know how deep that bullshit is. We know that we can't even get in to see a therapist tomorrow. We can't get to see a gender provider tomorrow.
Well,
and let's not even talk about gender reassignment surgery. I mean, how many of us are maybe even 3 to 5 years from even being able to talk about it?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's just so funny because like anybody with any brain can look at this and go, well, this is clearly fake. No doctor's confirmation would say, quote unquote, your child. No doctor's confirmation would say tomorrow at 9 a.m. Like it would always have the date. It would always have, the patient's name. It's just like, it's obvious fakery. And
now here's where it gets worse, Emily, because now we go down into the rest of the body of the text. If you would like to cancel this appointment because you do not believe in teaching young children about dangerous transgender ideologies, please sign your name now. President Biden is forcing 5-year-olds to learn about gender reassignment surgeries, gender identities, and other radical ideas.
Hold on, just side point. None of the Biden administration has ever brought that stuff up. You have. Your entire party are the ones that are talking about gender reassignment surgeries and putting it all over in front of all of the children.
Right. Yeah. He goes on to say, every American needs to step up today and stop this sick and twisted ideology from poisoning our children. If we fail, our children are doomed. So
to what? Oh my God.
Yeah. So that one. Then we go to my beloved state of Oklahoma. Jaron Jackson is running for the state senate in Oklahoma. He is a far-right pastor, and he is advocating for Christian nationalist theocracy and rails against the godless commies and them LGBTQ people. But his latest claim is that transgender women who have bottom surgery are Islamicizing their bodies.
Can you explain what he means by this? Because I'm laughing too hard to really understand and grasp the meaning of that.
I have no fucking clue.
Okay.
I'm going to go to his words, and I'm going to read what he has said.
First off, what the fuck does it matter to you what we do to our bodies? We are adults. We have rights to do whatever the hell we want. If I want to go get a tattoo or a piercing or whatever, like, I have the right to do this. This is so strange. This is a conversation I got into with my father, and he was very pissed about people who were quote unquote mutilating their bodies and doing these other things. It's just like, why the hell do you care? How does it affect your life in any way?
Yeah. Okay, so according to the Right Reverend Jackson, this is what he has to say about the issue. Genesis 1. God made man in his image, male and female, he created him. God's categories are good categories. God's plan is a good plan. It's a good order. Most of what we see today is a rejection of God's order. Most of what we see today are people seeing what God has made and choosing to reject it and deny it and destroy it and to molest it. Now, a father had called in asking about advice how to deal with a transgender daughter. He says this: that father, I believe, is criminally responsible for manipulating and grooming his daughter. It's his son, by the way. It's not his daughter. That father was criminally negligent to his son because that father has not built his worldview on truth. The son is suicidal. The son is messed up physically, chemically, emotionally, relationally, and truthfully. It's not bottom surgery, it's mutilization. And here we go. This is where we get the definition. You've Islamicized your genitals. You've Islamicized yourself. Muslims do genital mutilation for women that have sex or commit adultery. That's what Muslims do. You are Islamicizing your genitals.
Point of order, point of contradiction. I, born male, was circumcised, which is genital mutilation. Mutilation. Yeah. It is.
Let's not even get into what they do to intersex newborns who have either. And by the way, Alabama's new law rejecting gender affirming care, just like all of the other new laws that have come out regarding gender affirming care, provides for the loophole that says that if a child has ambiguous genitals, if they have a diagnosed chromosomal variance, or they have any type of other, what they called a disorder at birth, doctors have permission to surgically assign them genital gender identification.
And it's whatever the doctor feels is right, without any regard for the science, the biology, any of that. The doctor can make the decision. And I've even heard, and maybe I could be fact checked on this, but I was pretty sure that this is what people have told me and what I've come across, that the doctors don't even, in a lot of states, don't even have to involve the parents in that decision.
They don't. If there's reasonable doubt about the efficacy, meaning that the genitals may or may not work, the doctor can correct that.
I saw a note in the chat that someone lost audio.
Okay, so over to Alabama. Alabama's only out gay lawmaker blasts Republican for using trans kids as political footballs.
Is this the same guy that did that wonderful video where we're seeing in that wonderful video where he was just dressing down that lawmaker who had a gay brother?
No, that was in Missouri. But Neil Rafferty is an out and gay lawmaker and is basically pushing back on them and saying that they are putting children in play as political pawns, political maneuvering chips, so that those who are trying to be elected for, the midterm elections, basically they are using children's lives as tokens to get them elected. Mm-hmm. And here is the grand poobah of these candidates. A GOP Republican candidate who is so extreme that the Arkansas Republican Party does not want to associate with him. Neil Kumar is a 26-year-old Arkansas Republican, and he is running for the U.S. House, and he has issued a fundraising email that says, public schools are now nothing more than psychological torture camps. Education has been replaced by the promotion of the depraved LGBT agenda, a satanic attack on God and nature. I call it LGBTP. The P is for pedophilia. These sodomite predators are grooming, brainwashing, and mutilating our vulnerable children. These demons are defiling innocence itself, and they must be stopped. He claimed that school teachers in California are giving puberty blockers to children without parental consent. He claimed that a California school brainwashed a girl into believing that she was transgender and then had children taken away from her mother by social services when her mother wanted their kid to see a mental health professional. Last fall, the Republican Party chairperson said Kumar is a non-recommended candidate. Her party would not endorse or defend racist, bigoted, sexist, or threatening language by any candidate. Now, I want y'all to stop and think about what the chairperson of the Arkansas Republican Party just said. We will not endorse or defend any racist, bigoted, sexist, or threatening language by any candidate. There was an individual that I talked about a week or so ago here in Arkansas, a candidate who is wanting to ensure that they bring felony level measures to anti-trans bills. So anybody who is found guilty of bringing a youth gender affirming care, they would have felony charges brought against them. And you know damn well that person was bigoted and that person was using threatening language. So this is the campaign bullshit that we're looking at right now. So please keep your eyes out for any of these kind of comments that you find out in the world, because this is only going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, this next bit, I have some audio for because we have another champion. We have an amazing champion, a Michigan lawmaker, State Senator Mallory McMorrow. I'm sorry. All right, Mallory.
Leave the headline butchering to me, Jeannie. Come on.
This is name butchering. That's worse. State Senator Mallory McMorrow.
It is a mouthful, granted.
It is, especially when you say Michigan Senator Mallory McMorrow. But anywho, she gave a speech to the Capitol floor, on the Capitol floor, basically having to defend herself from one of her Republican colleagues. And now I want to share that audio with you all.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, to the news that the senator from the 22nd district had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme. Because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am. Growing up, my family was very active in our church. I sang in the choir. My mom taught CCD. One day, our priest called a meeting with my mom and told her that she was not living up to the church's expectations and that she was disappointing. My mom asked why. Among other reasons, she was told it was because she was divorced and because the priest didn't see her at Mass every Sunday. So where was my mom on Sundays? She was at the soup kitchen with me. My mom taught me at a very young age that Christianity and faith was about being part of a community, about recognizing our privilege and blessings and doing what we can to be of service to others, especially people who are marginalized, targeted, and who had less, often unfairly. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people. I also stand on the shoulders of people like Father Ted Hesburgh, the longtime president of the University of Notre Dame, who was active in the civil rights movement, who recognized his power and privilege as a white man, a faith leader, and the head of an influential and well-respected institution, and who saw Black people in this country being targeted and discriminated against and beaten, and reached out to lock arms with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was alive, when it was unpopular and risky, and marching alongside them to say, we've got you, to offer protection and service and allyship to try to right the wrongs and fix injustice in the world. So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. Each and every single one of us decides what happens next and how we respond to history and the world around us. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. I want my daughter to know that she is loved, supported, and seen for whoever she becomes. I want her to be curious, empathetic, and kind. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. We cannot let hateful people tell you otherwise, to scapegoat and deflect from the fact that they are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen. So I want to be very clear right now. Call me whatever you want. I hope you brought in a few dollars. I hope it made you sleep good last night. I know who I am. I know what faith and service means and what it calls for in this moment. We will not let hate win.
And I mean, come on.
Yeah, how can we get her on the ballot for president, please?
How can we even get her on a public nationwide platform?
What an amazing speaker.
Her and Ian from Missouri and Neil from Alabama. How can we get all of these people in one place saying the same thing? How can we get people to do that? That's what I want to know.
I see another Transverse summit, but this time we need to do it in person publicly somewhere. Whew. Wow. Wow. What powerful, what a powerful speaker. What beautifully eloquent delivery. Oh my God. All the points were just right on and just so powerfully delivered. I am a fan of this woman. I'm going to follow her, and I'm going to reach out to her because wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I would love to have, wouldn't it be cool to have one night of the transgender show where we had her and Ian and Neil and some of these other big voices together in just a group conversation to hear about, their perspective on what is happening out there.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I want that so bad. Wow. Okay. Before I just, get all fangirly here on her and stick on that for the rest of the night, let's move over to somebody who is arrested for threatening to murder dictionary editors over the definition of female. And surprise, it's a Trump supporter.
Right. Jeremy David Hansen, 34, of Orange County, California.
Oh, no. Orange messages. Orange is really red. The orange is red. So, yeah, makes sense.
So, Jeremy sent messages through the Merriam-Webster Contact Us website page. The definitions of girl, female, and woman had upset Jeremy and said, "It is absolutely sickening that Merriam-Webster now tells blatant lies and promotes anti-science propaganda. There is no such thing as gender identity. The imbecile who wrote this entry should be hunted down and shot." He wrote this and said, "Your headquarters should be shot up and bombed. It is sickening that you have caved to the cultural Marxist anti-science T-slur agenda and altered the definition of female as a part of the left's efforts to corrupt and degrade the English language and deny reality. You evil Marxists should all be killed. It would be a poetic justice to have someone storm your offices and shoot up the place, leaving none of you commies alive." He sent another message stating he would bomb their offices for lying and creating fake definitions.
Okay.
He identified himself as a Trump supporter and has made some other less than affirming and edifying comments to companies such as Land O'Lakes Butter for removing a picture of a Native American, an indigenous woman. Said Land O'Lakes deserves to be shot up and bombed for turning into a cultural Marxist company that panders to political correctness.
Wow, what a snowflake. It's crazy. Wow.
DC published a comic book in which one of the characters was bisexual, and so he emailed several DC employees, "I'm going to shoot up and bomb your offices for ruining Superman. First you turn him into a F slur, now you make him anti-American, you effing Marxist pieces of shit. I will make you pay." He also wrote he would kill the publisher of DC and rape and murder his wife. Folks, God, I am so glad I am such a fucking threat to life in America.
I didn't realize how much power we had. I didn't realize that we were this strong and threatening. Like it's I'm happy about that.
Well, here's the thing though. I mean, seriously. Obviously this individual has a specific definition of bombing that he has. And we all know that we are basically just a bunch of glitter bomb fanatics. I mean, we can go and bomb these places, but all it's going to do is be sparkly and fabulous. It's not going to be shot up. You know, we're not going to be able to overcome this with our glitter bombs and our unicorn poop. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. Let's see how this article goes. I didn't get a chance to read into this one. Trans reporter alleges wrongful firing by South Dakota Public Radio. What's going on here?
So the only transgender journalist at South Dakota Public Broadcasting lost their job after they were told that they are not objective and they have a problem with authority.
Okay.
Stell Klein said that they were terminated despite being told there was nothing for me to improve on at a recent quarterly review. Klein wrote that they took the not objective and problem with authority comments as compliments. But in a follow-up tweet, they said, "In my interview, I was very clear that as a trans person, I am unable to be impartial about attacks on my humanity. Objectivity is not a static identity, but when wielded as such becomes the language of those with the most power." In another, they added, "Declaring someone not objective in the selective practice used effectively to exclude POC queer journalists." Basically, Klein was identified as a narrow-sighted loudmouth who was basically a troublemaker.
Yeah, I find that pretty close to the definition of a good journalist, right? Isn't it?
Shocking! I know!
Insanity. That sucks. So, yeah, another trans voice silenced for now.
Yep.
Another person we'll be reaching out to. So I hope I didn't move things around for you. There were two articles about a professor that were split, and I put them together. So I don't know if you're ready to move on to him yet, or the other set of articles.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
trans professor, or no, sorry.
That would have made this article much more interesting.
Much more interesting. Yeah, instead of just infuriating. Professor who refused to use trans students' preferred pronouns wins massive payout from university.
Yep. Shawnee State University in Ohio. Professor Nicholas Merriweather consistently and habitually misgendered a transgender woman in one of his classes in 2018. The university has a policy regarding using names. The student had asked to be referred to with she, her pronouns, and he debated gender identity with her. So the student filed a complaint with the school, and that started a Title IX investigation against the professor because harassing LGBTQ students can be considered a violation of their right to an education free from discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
The investigation concluded that Merriweather created a hostile environment and was issued an informal warning. As a compromise, he said that he would refer to the student with her last name only, but then also began to add Mr. He got a written warning. In his defense, I am a Christian. As such, it is my sincerely held religious belief based on the Bible's teaching that God created human beings as either male or female, that this gender is fixed in each person from the moment of conception and that it cannot be changed. So he sued the university with help from the Alliance Defending Freedom, which we have talked about as one of the Illuminati of anti-trans rhetoric. And initially it was thrown out, but he appealed it. And he won $400,000 from the university.
So yeah, an issue where freedom of speech, the freedom of speech claim trumps the rights of the individual people to feel safe and to feel protected, feel not protected, but to feel safe. And it's not even a preferential treatment. It's just like, put me to neutral, like, just use my name pronouns, like that's it. There's no preferential treatment or anything. Just like treat me like you do all the others, and just let me do my thing. And this little subtle dig attacks constantly. I mean, it's so obvious that is not right, and yet the group of lawyers that saw over this case when it was appealed were predominantly Trump-appointed judges,
right?
And they voted that freedom of speech, and I'm sure there's probably like a freedom of religion thing thrown in there as well, because religion's always part of Christianity is always part of their decisions.
Yeah.
Played a major part in why they think that his rights to discriminate against someone else trump the person's rights.
And there's one thing that I do want to put in here now. For those of you who know my background, I take a very hard anti-Christian stance right now due to personal trauma that I experienced. But I still recognize that I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to the Bible. And I've also have a history of, regrettably, defending Christians' rights within this nation, sometimes to the exclusion of marginalized people. And for that, I am ever going to be ashamed.
This recent surge. Oh, sorry.
No.
the recent surge in the protection of the rights of the people who have the privilege to begin with is it's so backwards that it's hard to, it's another one of those that's hard to really to discuss or push back on, because it doesn't make any sense to begin with. It's like, you have all the rights and all the power, like, you're not persecuted.
Right.
Like that when people make comments about the fact that you have too much power, that's not like, it's not the same as someone who's being persecuted. And yet
Right.
they've gotten so much traction with this language that it, I don't know, it gives us nowhere to come from when
Right.
when you say anything against them. They're like, oh, we're being attacked. It's like, you're in the place of power. You have nothing to lose in this.
Right. But that place that I came from gives me a little bit more insight onto what is happening here. When a Christian steps out and says, this is my right, this is how I act based upon what my Bible says. The only real time you see Christians making a huge stand about what their Bible says is only within the evangelical and fundamentalist conservative sides of Christianity. You do not get to see the liberal side of Christianity, who uses the very same Bible in a much different way to empower them and to help them be able to be in a work among people. But they do not take their Bible out in front of God and everybody and the 5 o'clock evening news and say, this is what my Bible says. Christians on the right, the evangelical and the fundamentalist Christians, have learned to use media, the press, and every open platform they can to indoctrinate the world. But it has been so subtle and pervasive over such a long period of time that people don't even realize, non-religious people do not realize, that they hold Christian worldview beliefs. And so it's very easy for somebody to step up and say this kind of stuff, because the vast majority of people do not understand how they have been indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm. I loved what they said in Freakonomics, which just kind of blew my mind, that I'd never really thought of. I thought about it before, but I never realized it in the way that they put out there. If you don't believe that there is a dominant religion that has won over the world and rules the world, just look at a calendar.
Yeah.
The year that we are in is based on Christianity.
Yep.
It's not based on the Bible or anything. It's based on New Testament Christianity. Like, it's just that. Like,
it's not even New Testament Christianity. It was centuries after
mm-hmm.
the Bible when
Yeah.
the calendar was set.
Mm-hmm. Once they got the power.
Once they held power, once they had global power, at that point it was considered global power, because only the civilized world mattered to them. And the civilized world was basically every place where white people were.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Even the week, the first day of the week is Saturday. The seventh day of the week is, the first day of the week is Sunday. The seventh day of the week is Saturday. That's the Bible, y'all. You're not getting that.
What's that?
You're not getting that one?
No, because on the day of rest was the last day, right? Wasn't like, doesn't it tie into when God rested?
Shabbat, Sabbath,
mm-hmm.
was the seventh day.
Yeah, the seventh day.
It says God created for 6 days, and on the seventh day God rested. Mm-hmm. That is Shabbat, Sabbath, the seventh.
But
and so
then
the completion of the week.
Mm-hmm. But then you were saying in the calendars it starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday, so it's a flip of that.
Because in the New Testament it states that on the first day of the week Jesus was raised.
Okay, all right. I'm totally tangential. We don't need to work on educating me on this show. We're trying to educate our viewers and give them information. Anti-LGBT libs of TikTok exposed.
How Emily chastised me in the sweetest and most politest of ways.
No, I was not chastising you at all. I was saying that we've gotten off on a tangent for my benefit. I guess it benefits everybody, but it was a little more selfishly focused, and I wanted to move on.
Okay.
The anti-LGBTQ plus libs of TikTok exposed. Conservatives are extremely mad. What was exposed, and why are the conservatives extremely mad?
Okay. I want to give credit to Marla for bringing this one to my attention, because Marla reached out to me over this article because it has a very deep and profound point of intersectionality with her. But the Twitter account Libs of TikTok is sort of an expose account on Twitter, and they've kind of made it their job to expose liberals, and they take their content, or they say that liberals take their content and put it in front of an unreceptive audience. And then the followers of this account, which has somewhere close to the tune of 875,000, those followers will then go find that and begin to harass the person that is identified by Libs of TikTok. Now, the reason why conservatives are upset is because that Libs of TikTok is very much a launch pad for conservative mouthpieces. It was Libs of TikTok that Joe Rogan talked about on his podcast, and that sort of gave it credence, that gave it the ability to become a media sensation and viral account. So this individual that started this account has been revealed. And one of the reasons why they may be a little bit upset is that the person who is behind this account is a female Orthodox Jew. And basically, you have two things that are going on here. One, you have an account that has been feeding anti-trans agenda to conservative mouthpieces and Republican speakers and talking points and these media people. This has been, quoted by people like Tucker Carlson on his show. Libs of TikTok information is taken right from the Twitter account and thrown up on Tucker Carlson's show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is kind of personal to me, and it's kind of personal to us. Marla was featured on this page. Marla was highlighted on Libs of TikTok.
Wow.
And the reason why Marla was struggling with this is that as a racial Jew, she was kind of stuck at that place between, do I report this or do I create some sensitivity around this? What Marla did was she balanced it as perfectly as she could. And she released a TikTok on that. But the fact that this woman happens to be Orthodox Jew does not remove the damage that she is causing through that. Shannon's saying, because their content got blasted out by that page, it ended up on Fox News and they got outed on national TV. I mean, a family outing is criminal enough. A public outing in your community is devastating, but to be outed on national TV is downright torturous.
She's been through so much.
Yep. By the way, y'all, positive energies to Marla. She has COVID. She had a callback, a second callback on a show she auditioned for that she had to turn in material by Wednesday, and she's not going to be able to do it. So positive energies to our friend and our sister, Marla Alpert.
Poor girl. God darn it. Okay. One of the next article still sticking on libs of TikTok. Unless you want to move on from that.
Let's move on to that. Let's move on to Donald Trump.
All right. At the rally, the people attending chant "Save our kids" as Trump attacks schools for talking about trans people. So that's the new chant this year. Instead of lock her up, it's "Save our kids."
Yeah. So our favorite ex-president was attending a rally in Ohio, and I can't do an appropriate Donald Trump impersonation, but just listen with his voice in your ear. No teacher should ever be allowed to teach transgender to our children without parental consent. Isn't it amazing how that's become such a big subject? And who would even think that that would be a big subject?
My point entirely.
And it's like, you, Cheeto! But the crowd returned with "Save Our Children," as if he was leading them into a great promised land of protection from the great transgender agenda.
The Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Wow. What a...
Let's go ahead and I want to touch on the I want to skip that Exxon, just make it in passing. Exxon Mobil, the oil company, has said that they will not display a pride flag because they want to stay neutral in the face of all of the hostility. So during Pride Month, Exxon Mobil will not be flying pride flags from any of their headquarters.
I wonder, is there a directive not to fly it in any of the stations as well? All of the stations are independently owned, right?
Yeah, I believe so. This next story, I want to give credit to Lady Luna Wolf, who has been great about sending me stories. I've just not been great about remembering that she sent me stories. So I definitely got this one in this week.
Columbus City schools rail against HB 616 law as shameful and divisive.
So, House Bill 616 in Ohio is basically it excludes any subject matter that specifically includes critical race theory, intersectional theory, the 1619 Project, diversity, equality, and inclusion learning outcomes, inherited racial guilt, or any other concept that the State Board of Education defines as divisive or inherently racist. It also included such things as gender and sexual issues. But the Columbus City Schools issued a joint statement saying this bill amounts to an unprecedented regulation of curriculum and instruction and an unwarranted incursion into local control. It perpetuates hate, encourages intolerance in adults, and has no place in education.
Let's go. I like that.
Yep. Down in Florida, a complaint has been filed to ban the Bible as a woke document. So, Chad Stevens is an activist, and he's filed a complaint with 8 school districts in Florida challenging the place of the Bible in a school district. The Stop Woke Act was supposed to keep certain material out of schools.
Mm-hmm.
Over 200 books have already been banned in Florida based on that. So Stevens cites examples directly from the Bible saying that it is too woke to be available to young students. So Stevens is an atheist and basically called out and said, look, if they're gonna ban books, then the whole library should be in play. And my hope is that they will apply their own standards to themselves and ban the Bible.
Yeah, what were some of the things that he listed in there as the prohibited content? I loved reading that list.
I didn't grab it visually, so
yeah. But yeah, there's lots of incest and lots of other like wonderful things that are going on in the Bible. All the wonderful things about the Bible's position on slavery. There is slavery in there. It's all kinds of great stuff. So
I mean, if you wanted me to break it down, but you've already gotten on to me for chasing rabbits, so
I was talking about rabbits that just seemed too much for my own particular benefit.
Right. So Governor Desantis had signed the Don't Say Woke or the whatever the woke bill is. I can't even keep up with all of these names anymore. But the elementary school system had banned 71 math textbooks and 41% or 71% of the math textbooks and 41% of the textbooks for the entirety of all grades because they contained prohibited content. So when DeSantis was pressed on that to say, okay, where's this content? They couldn't give a cogent answer. So basically, they had no evidence for how they could come up with that refusal. A public library in Enid, Oklahoma, pulled down a display dedicated to LGBTQ the community after a lot of condemnation from right-wing Christians. And during a special meeting, the board of directors of the public library decided to ban the display after that pushback. But the result is not what the board expected. Now that a group of older women who read romance novels and a sexual assault support group have also been banned under the board's new guidelines about sexual activity.
Oh,
So
it's funny, but
Mabel
it's so
and
sad
Ethel,
that this support group is banned from the library.
Mabel and Ethel, who like to read their smutty romance novels, now cannot do that at the library no more, because most of those books are going to have to be pulled, because if you've not read A Bodice Ripper, oh my Lord, some of the content in there is just delightful. But yeah. And then you have this wonderful story from Florida, where a group of moms filed a criminal complaint against the Indian River School District for having libraries with LGBTQ book themes. Okay. Actually, I do want to correct one of the things that's being said in the chat right now. While I don't think your name gives us a safe feeling, Dirty Daddy Pig 420, I do agree with you that the comment that you made was very much accurate and that it was straight from the Bible. So I do agree. Anyway, back to Florida.
Okay, interesting.
The school board removed. The school board was told to remove 51 pornographic or sexually explicit books from the school libraries, and they included LGBTQ inclusive titles. Then they submitted a criminal complaint to the sheriff's office, and the supervisor of the sheriff's office child sex crime unit conducted a thorough review. And then Sheriff Eric Flowers wrote that the reviewed book's content do not allow us to make an arrest in this case. However, based upon this review, we do not feel that this content is appropriate for young children, even though it does not rise to the level of a crime. So now you have a sheriff determining the appropriateness of material.
Again, yeah. Government overreach. Now, government overreach in terms of a police state. Wonderful. Right. The police should be dictating what should be taught in schools. That makes people feel safe.
And there is nothing at all fascist about armed law enforcement officials coming to your place of business to tell you that the material that is within said business is not allowed. Because there has never, ever been a case of armed officials coming to a place of business to seize the materials, to seize the property, to apprehend and arrest the proprietors. Never, ever, ever in the history of all the world does that happen. By the way, you all, this is my sarcasm voice and face. I don't know if you picked up on that. I just want to make sure that it is definitely clear that I'm being as sarcastic as I possibly can. We got like 2 minutes left. Shannon, that was in Florida.
What are we trying to squeeze in here? I'm clicking in there.
Medicine and entertainment.
I'm very glad to not talk about JK again. You had mentioned the people in charge of the electric chair. And I thought that tied pretty well into the article about the barbaric conversion therapy that one trans woman suffered.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to talk about real quick?
I do. This is definitely a content warning because this is we are talking about an older trans woman talking about her experience in going through conversion therapy. So please recognize that if this is problematic for you, we're going to put the content warning in place, and then we will let you know when that content has been completed.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so Carolyn Mercer is 74 years old, and at 17, she was taken to a health system hospital and put in a dark room with a wooden chair with electrodes soaked in salt water and stuck to her arm. They then shot electric current through her body. She said, the pain shot through my body. My arm shot up in the air. This was repeated. They tried to make me associate pain with who I saw myself as being, who I wanted to be. This is all being talked about in the context of the UK moving forward with a ban on conversion therapy, but exempting conversion therapy and retaining it for transgender people. She went on to say that Ms. Mercer went on to say that despite living her authentic life, she never started to like myself more due to undergoing the conversion practice. I don't physically shake anymore when I think about that treatment that went on for 40 years, but I'm still struggling.
So the moral of this is the conversion therapy makes people struggle with themselves, but it doesn't change who they are. It makes their lives terrible, but doesn't do what.
Right.
That's why it's getting banned, but that it needs to be fully banned. And this is something that was in the UK, and this article was brought up. The statement was brought up in the wake of Boris Johnson doing a reversal on the conversion therapy ban, where it's just banning conversion therapy for the LGBT part of the community and not trans folks. So technically, it's still illegal. It's still legal for people to do this kind of horrific BS on trans folks.
Yeah, conversion therapy is still a viable treatment for transgender people. Now, I want to end on happy notes.
I was going to say, do we want to make fun of that?
A whole stack of happy stuff here. Okay.
We're already over. Let's just do it and end with as much positivity as we can.
So first of all, I think this one is a great helpful health and beauty tip. There is a new vegan hair removal cream for men that will keep your butt, legs, and chest silky smooth. I'm not sure who wants to hear about this, but I just thought it was funny as hell that there is a new vegan hair removal called
to keep your butt silky smooth.
And it's for men. So if you're curious about that, you can go to the Hush website and get a vegan hair removal cream. This is a happy news story. It's a great news story. The Wachowski sisters are auctioning off. Yes, the content warning is over. Sorry.
Oh shit!
The Wachowski sisters are auctioning off Matrix memorabilia to donate for trans youth. And they're going to be auctioning off some of their personal memorabilia from the Matrix and Cloud Atlas so that they can contribute to Ariana Grande's Protect and Defend Trans Youth Fund. And I thought that was just amazing that they're going to be doing that, and believed it to be a great thing for those people to do.
Yes.
Danny, damn it. Kevin Sorbo. Many of us probably kind of maybe fawned a little bit over Kevin Sorbo, but most of us probably were a little more Lucy Lawless. But Kevin Sorbo went from being Hercules to being a Herculean ass. Kevin Sorbo has definitely been associated with conservative Christian media lately. He has been a featured star in the God's Not Dead series. But Kevin Sorbo came out on Twitter just to say, basically he doesn't know how pronouns work. If CNN Plus had pronouns, they'd be was, were. He's gotten older, but it's sure a good thing that he was pretty when he was younger. If you've not been keeping up on the story, Ron DeSantis has declared political war on Disney in Florida and has basically moved to eliminate Disney's special tax status within the state of Florida. Within the state of Florida, Walt Disney World was basically its own micro-political institution. It was exempt from certain things that were related to the state. It had its own fire department. It had its own municipal utilities, all kinds of fun stuff. Ron DeSantis got his feelings hurt because Disney stopped giving him money in their, performative justice maneuver of basically saying, well, we pretty much screwed the LGBTQ community over. So now that everything's been decided and the law's out there, we're just going to have we're going to make a big statement about this. So basically, fuck Disney, fuck DeSantis, but now they're trying to fuck each other. So, this one is one of my personal favorites. Jim Baker. Who remembers televangelist Jim Baker and his wife, Tammy Faye? Tammy Faye, who had eyelashes that were so smeared on that I think there were a couple of times that she caught mosquitoes in those. I'm not certain. But Jim Baker doesn't like this Don't Say Gay bill. He doesn't like it at all. And the reason why he doesn't like it at all is because the Don't Say Gay bill is getting preachers killed right in the pulpit. They're just getting killed right there in the pulpit because of this Don't Say Gay bill. They call it Don't Say Gay, and it's not true. It's not even in the law. It says nothing. He said, I'm asking wisdom here on what to do because I get fought on every hand if I mention anything. And it's going to be preachers that we're not going to be able to preach much longer because they'll shoot us in the pulpit. They'll kill us in our pulpit. You don't believe me? They're already doing it. Jim Baker is a peach. If you don't remember, he was ripped down from grace, the throne of grace, after having an illicit affair with one of his employees. And after he came out of prison for embezzlement, and using money in an illegal manner. Then he started a new business, and most lately he has been convicted of fraud for trying to sell, I think, basically bleach as a COVID cure. And y'all, um,
Now he's just lying, making up murders.
now I do want to give Jim just a little bit of an out here. He did have a stroke. It's very possible that he shouldn't be on public television, but he is. So, and finally, this is the news story of the year. I am sorry, I've got to do this. Madison Cawthorn, who has become famous for being invited to orgies and coke-fueled evenings with other Republicans.
But didn't he? But he says that he's been invited. Wasn't that any like he was too pure to like go to that kind of stuff? Wasn't that sort of the thing?
Right, yeah. He was too pure. But photos were revealed and released showing Madison Cawthorn in what looks like a mesh or lace teddy with a bra draped across his arms in front of his chest.
Y'all have to see this. I'm putting it in chat.
So Cawthorn has basically, he's one of these individuals who has been on a rant about transgender women are not women. He's the one who told Nancy Pelosi what the definition of a woman was, and it was chromosomes and a tallywhacker.
Yeah.
Right? So, y'all, this guy is not to be taken seriously, but here's this picture of him. He says he was on a cruise, and he was doing one of those adult night activities on this cruise. Oh, you are so sweet, Rhonda. I think that's just adorable. It's Photoshop. If it was Photoshop, why would Madison actually admit to this? I don't think it's Photoshop because he actually said, yeah, this happened. Unless you mean Madison Cawthorn is himself a Photoshopped character. I mean, that could be it. I mean, he is definitely a caricature of a politician. But here he is. I mean, it's a gorgeous looking teddy. I mean, I love it. It's in a baby blue with a nice black lacy bra. I mean, I love the bra. I think it has looks like it's at least a C or a D cup. So,
well, and I gotta say, he looks really good with those giant hoop earrings too.
Right? I think the hoop earrings look amazing. I can't pull off hoop earrings like that. So.
Well, and this is just a funny kind of gotcha thing of like he's so anti-trans and all of this, and yet he's seen in this thing. This is nothing. This is just him. It's just a gender bending thing. It's fun. I mean, couples always do this. This is something not to be shamed for or anything. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this at all.
No, there isn't. This is on a cruise. They happen all the time.
And extremely completely straight people do
Yes.
this kind of stuff, for fun. It's just the irony of it, of how strong he's, coming out against trans stuff, and then, caught like this.
It's the hypocrisy for me. That he is some,
holier than thou.
Some standard of virtue that he avoided the coke-fueled orgies. But he was okay with drinking bourbon and coke, getting completely smashed, going to an adult program on a cruise ship, and then being made into a lingerie model. That is just a bit hypocritical to me. But who am I to judge? Danny, I can help you out with that. Come talk to me after the show, honey.
Oh, we do need to get on a good Transverse cruise. Oh my God, that'd be a fun thing to put together.
Okay, but if we do this, I get to be in charge of planning for the adult night.
Okay. Wait, you're saying it's going to be a one-night cruise, or there's only going to be one night where we're going to do adult stuff?
There's going to be a one-night Genie Spicy Night activity.
Okay. I don't know why there'd just be one night, but that's fine. That's totally fine.
It's because you know how redonkulous I am.
And the funny thing is, I don't think you know how redonkulous I am, but you know, it's all good. It's all good. We have a lot of people here in chat, and it's wonderful. What's that, honey?
Really? You want to compare redonkulousness?
I'm just saying you don't know the depths of mine. Folks, there are 30 people in chat right now. There's a lot of people hanging out, having a really good time. God, I hate to cut a show when we have such a great audience. But we've gone through our fun articles. I hope you all had a great time tonight. I know I did. I know it's tough. There's a lot of tough news out there. It's really tough to kind of face it. I appreciate those of you that come back week after week and endure it along with us. I hope when we add our commentary and our silliness on top of it, it spins it in a fun way for y'all. We just love having you here and your support. Thank you for the hype train earlier. I just love you all so much.
Y'all are a great group of people. I love being here every week. Should we go ahead and make the announcement?
Yeah, before we have the conversation, sure, why not?
I mean, we can wait until tomorrow if you want.
Well, you were the one that was just now talking about a spicy night, and so if you want to be hypocritical, fine, go ahead.
Oh, no, you did not go there.
I sure did.
You.
I just went low.
Oh, we're talking now. No announcement. We're talking now.
All right, I'm about to get whipped pretty hard by Jeannie, but you know, as we talked about, it'll be more fun.
I said you were going to engage my degradation kink after we had this show. Guess what I get to do? Go find you a collar.
Oh, the poor folks in chat that don't get to be a fly on the wall for this conversation that's about to happen. We'll have an announcement for y'all soon.
Yeah.
I'll announce it tomorrow on well, just go ahead. Just do it. You're fine.
Okay. After some consideration about the work that I do and the time that I've been spending and also the attention that I've been giving, I have decided to step down from Behind Open Doors. I will no longer be hosting that show. And Emily and I are going to meet right after this to talk about possible avenues of things to go. I'm not leaving Transistance. I'm still playing with the Valkyries occasionally. So this is not a matter of me stepping away. This is just a matter of me refocusing my energies on the work that I do when it comes to coaching and consulting. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more, and you all will be hearing about that a little bit more coming up.
But yeah, as of now, Behind Open Doors is on indefinite hiatus. And joking aside and everything, it makes us very sad. We love having Jeannie around. We love what she brings to this. We're so glad that she's still going to be part of Transistance. I think this show is amazing, and I love everything that you bring to it. So I'm glad that you're sticking around for that. And yeah, we'll talk and we'll figure out something for that place. I think talking about sex, relationships, and intimacy is critical for our community and for our platform here. So we will definitely not be dropping that subject entirely.
No, not at all. This in no way is me saying that I'm stepping out of the Transverse and offering my expertise. That is not it at all. This is just being on Twitch doing this show. I've not been able to bring as much attention and attention to detail and and dedication to it. So instead of trying to find why and make that adjustment, I would rather work with Emily and Charlotte and see what we and Danny and see what we can do as far as more direct impact to the community.
Well, with that, we love you all. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow for Keep Living and the Transgender Show.